Alright, we're going to talk about Batman v Superman here today. It's going to be a little different from usual. There's not going to be a lot of visual involved. It's going to mostly just be me talking. But this is also a spoiler warning right now, because I'm going to get into detail about this movie and kind of some of its major flaws that I noticed upon watching it yesterday. So if you care about spoilers, shut the video off, then go kill yourself. Everyone else, thanks for staying. Before I get into the bad, let's talk about some of the good. Ben Affleck makes a competent Batman slash Bruce Wayne. Liked him playing Bruce Wayne as kind of a lush. And also, Alfred, played by Jeremy Irons, is amazing. Because he's playing him as a smart-ass butler. It's like Alfred through the lens of like Jeffrey from The Fresh Prince. And he's easily the best part of this movie. Also, on a more nerdy note, I did enjoy a lot of the references to the Dark Knight Returns that are in the last part of this movie. Okay, now for the bad. And shocker of shockers, there's a lot more of the bad. First major problem. No one in this movie has any reason to do what they're doing. Their motivation goes completely unexplained. The movie starts, we see that Lex Luthor hates Superman. We see that Superman hates Batman, and Batman hates Superman. There is no attempt at explaining why this is. Now, I guess because we're the audience, we are aware that Lex Luthor always hates Superman, but it seems that in a movie there should be some justification for this, and there is none. In the original Christopher Reeves Superman, we're at least given that there's a crooked real estate deal going on, and Lex Luthor thinks that Superman could stop it, so we understand why he might want to eliminate Superman. But in this, it just comes out of nowhere. There is literally no justification at any point. And for some reason, Eisenberg is playing Lex Luthor like he's Frank Gorshin for some reason. I don't know what led to that artistic decision, but it does not work. But anyway, Lex Luthor is trying to get some kryptonite with no real explanation of where kryptonite came from, because there was no mention of it in Man of Steel, and apparently was on the Kryptonian craft in the last movie, although why it's there doesn't really make sense. But alright, he wants to get a big chunk that's in India, import it to the US. And despite the government saying, yeah, we can do this for you, and we can give you access to the alien craft and to the dead alien bodies, they, at the last minute, go, no, we're not letting you import this chunk of kryptonite. They never actually say kryptonite, but it's kryptonite. And it seems like for all three, the importing, the access to the alien bodies and craft, it would be, sure, we can do this for you, Lex, but there's going to have to be some government oversight while you're doing it. It's not just going to be, free, unfettered access. But no, he apparently just has full access, no supervision, no oversight. They're just fully 100%, but when it comes to importing that thing, no import for you. It's illogical. And throughout the movie, we see Ben Affleck's Batman having weird nightmare dream sequences, some of which don't really make sense, because at one point, before he knows that Superman is Clark Kent and that Lois Lane's involved, he gets a dream with the Flash, I think, warning him that Lois Lane's the key, even though there's no reason at this point in the movie that he should know who or what Lois Lane is. So we're not really sure if this is actually a dream sequence, or it actually happened, or a combination thereof. And at a certain point in the movie, it just becomes clear that Lex Luthor knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Clark Kent is Superman. There's no explanation as to how he got this information, because he goes from referring to them as Batman and Superman to now just referring to them by their secret identities. And there's no point where he was doing investigation. There's no way he could have got this information that we are showing. It just happens that he suddenly knows. I guess we're meant to assume that Lex Luthor is a genius, but even a genius actually needs some facts on which to base their extrapolations. So Lex is going to get them to fight one another, and apparently all it takes to get Batman really raring to fight is sending him back some disability checks with some insults written on them. Meanwhile, he has somehow figured out that Superman is Clark Kent and has kidnapped his mother, and tells him, if you don't go fight Batman, I am going to kill your mother. And apparently, despite Superman being able to hear Lois Lane in trouble across the world, he can't use that same super hearing to find where his mom is, like, whining and straining against a gag or anything. And it turns out she's just in a warehouse somewhere, so it's not like she's in a soundproof room that could maybe justify that he can't hear. No, it's just like an old broken down warehouse. So, literally no reason he shouldn't be able to figure out where Ma Kent has gone. So we get ready for the fight to happen. We get a nice montage of Batman making some kryptonite weapons and a little Rocky-esque training. Then we cut to him ready to go, and for some reason he has the big power armor suit from Dark Knight Returns, which is cool to see, but it would have been nice to actually see him building or designing that thing. And they're ready to fight now. And for some reason, during this fight, we completely forget that Superman has super speed. Because, okay, I can buy that this suit lets him go toe-to-toe with Superman to an extent, but it's not like he can throw a punch at the speed of sound or anything. I mean, he's still limited by his human body. But Superman's super speed, that was actually used earlier in the movie, no, we completely forget about it for this fight. Of course, because it is official DC Universe law, Batman has to win this fight, and he's about to spear Superman with a kryptonite spear. And because Superman says Martha, they stop fighting. Because apparently the fact that it's Martha Wayne and Martha Kent is enough to make it be like, oh, well, we can't fight, our moms are named the same. So, despite the fact they both just had the living shit kicked out of them, Superman is going to go confront Lex Luthor, and Batman is going to go save Martha Kent. And he's going to do this by basically being the Punisher and not Batman. Which some people have made a big deal about the fact he's using guns and killing people, and I'm just like, you know what, I'll give him a pass on this one. I mean, why not? It doesn't bother me. And now Superman is confronting Lex Luthor inside the crashed Kryptonian ship from the first movie. And in like 2 hours' time, Lex Luthor has figured out all the technology on this ship, and apparently how to clone a Kryptonian human half-breed using the body of General Zod. Which, alright, fine. Makes a nice monster, except why would making it half-human turn it into some kind of monster? And also, it has abilities that are not Kryptonian or human in nature. It seems to absorb kinetic energy. I guess it's like a combination of Doomsday, Bizarro, and the Parasite. For some reason. Because while Superman's fighting this thing, they at one point launch a nuke, which almost kills Superman, but the creature just absorbs the nuclear energy, and it's perfectly fine. And I mean, technically, if it's only half Kryptonian and half human at this point, shouldn't it actually be considerably weaker than a full-blooded Kryptonian? I know I'm getting into, like, comic book science at this point, and that's a dangerous area to try to apply logic to. But why this thing's monstrous in the first place makes no sense. And also, during the, like, 30-minute fight scene we have with this thing, its size goes up and down repeatedly. Sometimes it seems to be just a little bigger than our, Batman and Superman. And sometimes it's huge. It's like 15 feet tall. No consistency whatsoever. Oh, and during this, Wonder Woman shows up, because why not? We've seen her a couple times in the movie, kind of flirting / playing some espionage games with Bruce Wayne. But she sees that this fight's happening on the news, and she's just like, you know what? I haven't done anything in over 100 years. I need to get in on this action. And during this whole thing, there's a subplot where Lois Lane is trying to prove that Lex Luthor has been out to get Superman, because she figures out there's someone trying to frame Superman, and she figures out it's Lex Luthor, but doesn't really actually have much physical evidence for this. But regardless of that, once the super fight is over, we just cut to Lex Luthor in prison, even though there's no actual evidence that would convict him. There's just Lois Lane having kind of done the math on it. Apparently, more than enough to convict him, put his ass in jail. Would have been nice to see him get confronted, maybe get arrested. No, no, no. He was on an alien ship which he had permission to be on, working with alien technology that he had clearance to work on. So there's no reason they could arrest him. Now, the monster came out of the ship, but they can't really prove he had anything to do with that. I mean, if he's really that smart, he could have played it off like, well, I was examining this stuff and I hit a button and, well, this just happened. There's no cameras or anything. They can't disprove that's the series of events. But nah, he's in jail getting his head shaved. And then he gets, like, threatened by Batman. Oh, and during the course of the fight, we're supposed to believe Superman died. But come on. Nobody watching this movie seriously believes that Superman is not going to show up in subsequent DC films. You know he's coming back. And I could go on. These are just what I consider to be the major, like, glaring problems with the movies. There's another 20 minutes of, like, little nitpicky bullshit I could go into. But when there's this much glaring problems, there is no reason to go into nitpicks. So, thanks for listening, if you didn't care about spoilers.